Chapter 2, First Job, Marriage, Fruit Prices, 1936, First Dog. By January of 1936, I was 21, and my cousin, Frank Batters, then well up in the Ford Motor Company, got me a job in the Danforth branch of Ford in Toronto. This looked like heaven at 75 cents per hour. The job was seasonal, starting in November and ending in May, just perfect. We hired a full-time man and moved him into the spare house, family and all, at $25 per month. I boarded at a private home owned by a widow, Mrs. Grills, who tried hard to be my second mother. I fear that I had burned up most of the profits of the deal on a $50 Durant car and lots of gas. I was never so homesick in my life. My first experience away from home, deeply in love, and my only acquaintance, Mrs. Grills. I sure burned that number 2 highway, lost a little in speeding tickets too. The job went great. My boss and myself were responsible for parking, gassing, and washing all the new cars off the assembly line, about 135 per day. I found a way to cut that washing time from 2 cars an hour to 8. In our spare time, we kept the executive cars clean, including the manager's car, Mr. Murdoch. I will never forget the day he had me called to his office. I was sure about to catch hell for something. It turned out that he had some experience in farm work and had operated a tile drain digging machine and had known my father. He advised me to forget Ford, go home, and prove myself in making the farm pay. I was kept on until the middle of July and told to report back in the middle of August. With the prospects looking so much better, Lib and I decided to get married on the 7th of August. A short honeymoon in the North Country, hauling a matchbox house trailer behind the Durant. When we came back, the big house was full of boarders, the entire orchestra, the Wright brothers, who were playing at the dance hall on the west corner of the farm. I was too proud to move in with Lib's folks, so we slept in the first garage in the backyard. We drove to Toronto and rented a 6-room house on Rosevere and signed a year's lease. It took a week to clean the place and move all the second-hand furniture down. 3 trips with the old Model A truck. When we were leaving in the car the last time, everybody had a little cry, kissed goodbye, and we promised to be back by Christmas. When I reported for work the next Monday, I was informed that there was no job for me. We packed up the old Durant and moved back home the same day. You should have seen the expressions on the faces at home. We moved back to Toronto the first part of December. Work of any kind was not available. McBride Garage, being relatives of Lib's, allowed me to watch the fender repairmen work and see if I could pick up on the trade. On the 21st of December, they gave me my first paying job, which, when completed, would have net me $10. I worked the whole afternoon and was about halfway done by 5:30. On arriving home, Rosevere Street, the notice had come in to report for work in the morning, so I never did earn any money as a body and fender man. Work terminated in early June, so we moved back to the farm. Things proved a little better as we broke about even for the year's work. Looking back, production was really pathetic. Apples sold for 50 cents to 60 cents a bushel, and we had 400 altogether. Cherries, 200 11-quart baskets at 35 cents. Grapes, about 7 tons at $30. We had every known variety of plums scattered all over the farm, most of which were second-rate varieties, such as Goulet, Monarch, Pond Seedlings, Yellow Egg, Bradshaw, Orleans, Damson, Burbank, Shiro, Grand Duke, and some I did not know the name of. Total, about 2,000 6-quart baskets at 15 cents. I forgot to mention Lombard, Green Gage, Imperial Gage, and Sweet Damson. Pears, Bartlett, 2.5 tons at $35, and Kiefer, 4 tons at $20. If you add all this up, the total would be about $970. Take $300 for a man's wages, buy baskets at $18 per 1,000, a spray material bill of $60 operating expenses for the tractor and truck, hay for the horses, $7 per ton, and other small items. We were lucky to break even. Nursery stock cost about 40 cents per tree, which we felt was out of reach because of the quantity required. I ordered 5,000 seedlings at 2.5 cents from Shenandoah Nurseries in Iowa, USA. We planted gooseberries and black currants between the pear trees, red currants between the apple trees, and in the power lines we planted black and red raspberries. Anything to speed the recovery of production. The seedlings required a 2-year wait from planting to setting in the orchard. I did the budding myself and Lib wrapped them. We also propagated grapevines from our vineyard, also a 2-year program. To spend money foolishly was utterly ridiculous, so to decide what was absolutely necessary took a lot of consideration. It took me 2 weeks to buy our first new implement, an $18 one-horse cultivator. Jack Orr was salesman for Lee Hardware in Stony Creek, and he allowed me $5 on the deal for an old one-horse plow, which I thought I could do without. Del Piero was a neighborhood mechanic and a good friend. What I could not repair myself, he did for me as cheaply as possible. He was a machinist, a carpenter, a welder, and you name it. His hobby was hunting, and we enjoyed many of the pheasant seasons together. Birds were plentiful right around home, also jackrabbits and cottontails. He enjoyed Springer Spaniels, and 2 of the best in Ontario were trained by him. Margot, a female, and John Locke's Peter Pan. More about him later. I received a little mongrel pup in my 10th summer that was easily the smartest dog in my career. He was half police dog, half Newfoundland. I named him Leo. He was all my dog, with a capacity for learning that was hard to believe. I thought all dogs were like that, and so gave him no special consideration. With the least amount of instructions, he would willingly try any crazy thing I wanted him to do. Climb a stepladder, roll a barrel, walk a plank 4 feet off the ground, follow me, lead me, protect me, swim with me, or sleep with me if he had the chance. I made a harness to pull me on my little wagon in the summer and on the sleigh in the winter. What a dog. It was not required to keep a dog tied, so he roamed the countryside without fear because he could lick any dog for miles around. Arnold Hill told me Leo and his full brother would fight back to back and take on all the rest of the dogs in the vicinity when Norm Lever's female came in heat. McBride's had a dog soon after they moved in, and they were never that friendly. Each kept on its own side of the road. But heaven help the dog that went down the middle of the road. They would both pile on him. Leo lived to a ripe old age in spite of being shot twice and hit on the highway several times. He died in late 1938. He never bit anyone, but would not hesitate to show non-family members a set of rather impressive teeth if they tried to prevent him from entering the house ahead of them. He would growl a little. Very few failed to get the message. End of Chapter 2. Florence Louise DeWitt came into the world, our first and a real joy. Lib's mother thought Florence was the nicest baby in Canada. My mother was not so sure. When they saw the baby for the first time in the hospital, my mother said, "Well, she certainly doesn't look like any of our kids." Judging from Mrs. McBride's expression, I would suggest that she was just about ready to commit murder, but being such a fine lady, she merely said, "I think she is a beautiful baby." 1939 brought the beginning of the Second World War, and we continued to move twice a year. Every fall, when I was called into Ford, we would spend the first week with Harv and Marge Libby. Lib looked for a place to live while I worked. Come the first weekend, we would move into whatever flat apartment or house we could rent for a decent price. The best we had was on Chisholm, a 4-room heated apartment for $35 per month. Harris Askew helped us move to that one, which was on the 2nd floor. We took that big old piano and found that it would not go through the door at the top of the stairs. Even the mover we called could not do it, so we had to take it back to the farm. What a struggle. For some unknown reason, this type of struggle, and we had many, never seemed to be the hardship, but rather to be expected as part of everyday living. Although the Second World War brought the end of the Depression, it also brought other problems. Meat, butter, and gasoline were rationed and required coupons issued by the government for their purchase. Production of every commodity was increased greatly, but the essential items received priority on our labor force. Every healthy male was conscripted into the fighting forces who could not serve the war effort better at home. In 1941, Thomas Charles DeWitt was born. We were told by Dr. Vanderberg and a specialist that we would never get him home from the hospital. He had a slight murmur in his heart, refused to suck, so had to be fed with a gavage, a tube inserted through his mouth to his stomach for each feeding. He had little flesh growths similar to small earlobes on the right side of his face and one on his left eyeball. He had all the faculties but was somewhat slower to learn than average.